To Christchurch, where Southshore residents are sick of constant flooding and say the Christchurch City Council is leaving the suburb at the mercy of the Pacific Ocean. Now, the coastal suburb is regularly flooded during storms, and that's due in part to the neighbouring estuary having risen during the Christchurch earthquake. Several Southshore groups voiced their frustrations to the local community board last night with the hope of getting authorities more involved. A response is required, they say. Logan Church headed out to the seaside suburb to see how bad the situation is.
Sam Hawkins' family runs the South New Brighton motor camp on the edge of the Avon Heathcote estuary. In May, the Christchurch City Council announced it was passing the management of the camp to Sam and his wife Jackie, with a council spokesperson saying the council had responded to the community's wishes and celebrations were in order. But Hawkins says they neglected to tell him that the area was prone to flooding.
So we had one that we were a good 2 foot under around our roadways. You couldn't see the road anymore, which is our main concern, to pump that out so people could safely get through. And then the water ingress through the back of the camp, sort of from where we're standing back through, was starting to flood through there, and if that kept going would have just encroached the whole way through the camp.
Southshore sits on a narrow strip of land, bordered on one side by the Avon Heathcote estuary, which is where the city's 2 main rivers flow into, and the Pacific Ocean. The council declined to be interviewed, but said in a statement that it's investigating flood protection options. It has also been carrying out works along parts of the estuary to provide better flood protection, including workers putting in emergency stop banks during recent storms. But Mr Hawkins says that has actually made flooding worse.
It's either side of the camp making us an entry point for a funnel, basically. And if the erosion happens and they naturalise these banks like they want to, we're below the level of the banks, so we basically become underwater and the camp disappears.
Part of the problem is a council-installed stormwater outlet, which Mr Hawkins says is constantly blocked by sand and debris. During a storm, this backs up, forcing water up through the camp's drains. One of the camp's permanent residents, Vesta Boswell, says she has come outside her camper van after heavy rain to find she is completely surrounded by water. She says the City Council needs to come up with a solution, and fast.
They've done absolutely nothing along the bank, which I think is just, it's not okay. They're busy looking at other areas and they're just leaving this be, and yet they let a business continue, and they're not having any support for it.
Next door, the South New Brighton Tennis Club also suffers from extreme flooding. Its president, Mark Condon, says the entire tennis club is regularly underwater. He says the council is leaving the area at the mercy of the Pacific Ocean.
We're not an island, we live in a city with many other people. But what we are disappointed in is the fact that we feel neglected. And not only that, we feel let down and fobbed off.
The South New Brighton Residents Association is proposing to build a seawall along the estuary at a cost of $37 million. Mr Condon says the council has invested in hard-edge flood protection in other areas, but has done little to help Southshore.
Either clean this whole area out of residents, buildings, everything, and let it go to be a natural wetland. Or, if you let people live here, at least make them safe. And to hold what you've got and what you need a hard shoulder on the estuary.
A report which considers flood protection options for Southshore is due to be provided to the council on Thursday. For Checkpoint, Logan Church.
And we'll keep an eye on what that report reports.